welcome to FTC. So, here we're going to start with what is First Tech Challenge. So First Tech Challenge is a global robotics challenge with segments such as engineering, programming, and marketing business. So some people may think that, hey, FTC Robotics is just building robots and competing, but there's many aspects to it, such as the marketing aspect of it, where you have to create polished portfolios, you have to outreach to teams like what we're doing today, and you have to be a part of the community. And engineering programming is more of the building and programming of the robot, so where you would actually be hands-on learning about the aspects of like Java for programming or CAD for engineering, which is Fusion 360, what we're going to be teaching you later today.
We won't be explaining all of FTC because a lot of the competitions it can be confusing, especially if you're starting off. And we think it's just best to go to one and to see for yourselves how a competition works. But we will be telling you about the three aspects of FTC.
So I was in the previous season, I was one of the engineers. So basically what an engineer consists of, it may seem a bit self-explanatory, but there's a lot more to it. It's not just building the robot, but it's also taking into account the pre-planning of it, right? So one of the biggest lessons that we learned is that the importance of CAD. CAD is basically computer aided design, and what it lets you do is it lets you plan out using the parts that you have from your manufacturers like Rev and GoBoda, and you get to take those parts and basically design it. It's like a blueprint. So you get to design it on this virtual program, and then after you have it perfected, like how you want to build it, then you get to take that design and build it in real life, right? So that's the different process of engineering is that it starts off with thinking of what you want to do, executing that in CAD and getting like a blueprint, and then getting with your team and together building all of the things that you CADed. So CAD is one of the most fundamental things about FTC, especially about engineering as well. And it's one of the things that I highly recommend that you learn. There's a lot of great tutorials over on YouTube that teach you how to use CAD and everything. And I know with a lot of FTC teams, they're really willing to help each other out and all the different members there. So definitely start learning CAD. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us as well. Another thing is 3D printing. Although not everybody has access to 3D printing, it's a really cool tool. It lets you build the parts that you want to, especially if manufacturers don't make it. So you'll see on a few of our robots, we do 3D print parts. Down here, we 3D printed battery holders. And then up here, the rainbow colored rails, we 3D printed those as well. So it's not necessary, but it's just a really cool tool. And then, as you would have guessed, building a robot is a big part of the engineering side. So that usually happens after you've CADed it and after you've talked with your team and everything. Um, you don't really need that many tools. A simple screwdriver for the screws, and then maybe a saw or two to cut the parts down if needed. Besides that, it's just assembling what you CADed. And one of the most important things is to always be safe with the tools that you're using. And yeah, that's basically all of engineering.
Programming, which many people refer to as the dark side. So basically, the control system consists of two Android devices, and you basically program the robot based on the specifications of the engineers. So you would need to work with the engineers to figure out what needs to be programmed and how it needs to be programmed. There's two aspects of programming, the simple teleop mode, which is controller driven, and complicated autonomous. Autonomous is basically a period in the first tech challenge game where the robot completely runs off of code and nothing else. So there's two aspects of autonomous. You can use Roadrunner, which is a an Android Studio toolkit which allows the robot to automatically track distance and estimates the exact coordinates on the field where you want the robot to go. And encoder drive. Encoder drive, you can use the motors encoders to be able to basically make the robot move and estimate its location. So basically, programming is very vast. You just have to work with your teammates and not do this thing last minute because there's lots and lots of errors that can happen in the background where things don't work where you want it to and you have to troubleshoot it. So programming is basically banging your head on the table when things don't work. So yeah, so basically the basics of programming. So here we have a match clip. Just pause that for a second, Arsh. So here we have a match clip from the Freight Frenzy season, which is basically the format of the game will change this year. It's going to be called Power Play, but basically there's going to be about 30 seconds for autonomous, 1 minute for teleop, and 30 seconds for endgame. So if you want to show it, the first 30 seconds of the match will be in autonomous, where, as you can see, we're going to be in the top right corner. So go ahead and click play, Arish. You have to work with an alliance to be able to
So as Sion said, that was the autonomous program. So that's where you have absolutely nobody controlling the robot. It's all based on what you coded beforehand. And then I can skip to a bit later in the match. So this is where it's all driver control now. So you can see up there, everybody's holding the remotes, and this is us actually controlling the robots.
So that's the other part of the problem. In order to,
as you can see, based on the challenge, there's many different types of robots that can come. Here's a great example of 4 completely different types of delivery systems on the robots.
A good amount of that actually has to do with trying not to take the robot's design into account.
So here we're approaching endgame, which is the last 30 seconds of the game. As you can see in the top right corner, we actually used a creative method of putting a cup on top of the shipping hub over there. We actually use a tape measure, if you can believe that, to be able to do that. So here.
All right, so that was basically a match from last season. So just to give you an idea of how the autonomous works and how driver controlled works, the map's going to look a little bit different and the challenges are going to be different for next year, but it's the same basic ideas. So now we can talk about marketing. Trevor, would you like to start on that?
Yeah. So, by the way, you can find those videos on YouTube if you want to ever see any of these matches. And if you want to even find out more about teams, there are plenty of teams all over social media, outreach stuff like this. And this is done by their marketing team. So the marketing team, it's vague as to what they do. They basically, as programmers and engineers, help build and create the robot for the competitions and everything. The marketers make sure that they can have that money for fundraising, and that a lot of judges like it when you outreach out to other places. We have mentors, and stuff that we do is we go to this school called Wilson Elementary. It's in Coppell, where we are located, and we ran a robotics competition for them. That's something that we do for outreach. Judges like it, and of course, it's always great for the community because that's what FTC is about. It's about supporting the community. We also do women in STEM because we have a lot of members on our team who are women, and I don't know details of that, but I know that they do stuff. There's a lot of collaboration in marketing, especially recently. We have 6+ members in marketing right now. This is probably the biggest our marketing team has ever been, and a lot of it comes down to communication and collaboration when creating events such as Wilson Elementary's robotic competition and fundraising such as a sale or sponsorships, because that's a lot of what we do. We also do a lot of design and branding. If you don't know what branding is, you want to have a way for other people to know who you are as a team using colors and a logo, and you keep it consistent. It basically shows consistency. As you can see, a lot of our colors are blue, but we also have yellow as some of our accent colors. Design is very important to me, and I think that is how we are able to get people to know about us. Again, not everyone who joins marketing can do everything. I can tell you that a lot of this stuff is very hard for me. I mostly just do design, and I also lead the marketing team. And so I do a lot of collaboration and communication, but a lot of other members on the team do fundraising and outreach and other stuff. That's a general idea of marketing. Next week, we will be exploring this more. We're going to be doing a presentation on how to do good branding, good design, how people can see it and it stands out. We'll also be talking about fundraising next week for our presentation. And I think you guys should be there for that because it's a really cool thing and it's good for you guys to know. But other than that, I think that's it for marketing. Yeah, I think I covered the general basics.
All right, Sam, should you want to go on with this slide?
This year we're switching to two captains controls everything, which basically means that the STEM captain controls engineering and programming, and the marketing captain controls, which is Trevor over there, controls the marketing section. Not necessarily controls, but delegates tasks within there. Yeah.
About it, last season, we had 8 people in leaderships. We also didn't have 30 members on our team as we do now. And so basically a third of our team was in leadership, it was kind of disorganized, you could say. I think that was one of our struggles last season. Yeah.
So I can talk about when the events are. It starts off in September, and that's when the challenge is initially introduced. So they'll let you know what it's all about, what your goal is in this challenge, and go on from there. And that's like gives you an idea of, okay, this is what we need our robot to do. Here's how we're gonna do that, right? Just start getting your ideas going. October, the scrimmage. I'll be honest, at the scrimmage, a lot of people, this isn't a place where you're supposed to have like a finalized robot, right? It's so early on in the year. It's just so that you are able to understand how the event actually works, how all the different parts are going, and everything like that, right? So by scrimmage, you want at least like a base, a drivable robot, but it doesn't need to have like a fancy arm or like a rotating disc or anything on it, right? It's just the scrimmage is really just to see what you're trying to do in the field. November, December, and January are all qualifying events, and these are like the actual events that matter. So you should have a really polished robot by this time, and this is the actual part of the competition that you want to advance in, right? So if you do really good in these qualifying events, whether that's through an award or even your progress, then you advance to the elimination events, right? So by November, and if not December, you want a really good robot, and you should be getting going pretty quickly by then. February and March are elimination events. It's like the next stage up after qualifying. And another like really important set of rounds where you're trying to go to the top, because if you get through that, then you're going to go to finals. So I would recommend, like, it might seem like very far, but you start working the day that challenge comes out. Start planning out ideas. Meet up with your team if you can. Start catting. Have marketing reach out and do outreach events. And for marketing, what's really cool is that you don't even need to start at September. You can start outreach before that date even starts, right? Get a head start on everything, just like we're doing. We're doing outreach over the summer. So be productive with your time. It seems like it's really far, but it's the perfect time to start doing all the behind the scenes work before the challenge is released. So I would say if you have a new team, or even a team that's already been doing this, start doing your outreach, and all the behind the scenes work of organizing teams, learning CAD, and all of that. Because it'll be really helpful, especially when that challenge comes out.
And if I'm not mistaken, the challenge will be out on September 18th, a Saturday.
I actually have a question. Aren't they changing the setup for?
It was just for our region. That the setup was for the qualifier. So basically, what we're talking about is North Texas had a thing where we just stayed on qualifying formats instead of league format, which is a different way of playing, of actually qualifying for a regional event. So league meets is basically a qualifying event split in three. There's You first meet up three times with the league. So you have League Meet 1, League Meet 2, League Meet 3, and you basically try to rack up your score as high as you want it to. And then 10 of your qualifying matches the scores will basically roll over to something what's called a league tournament. The league tournament is where you actually qualify and actually where the judging events are. So basically, you get your judges interview there. You get 10 of your league meets points added to your score over there, and then you try to get the highest score possible to be the final alliance or an Inspire Award winner. And from there, 4 or 5 teams will go to the regional tournament, which is an elimination event, as we said. All right.
All right. So, what happens if you're involved in other activities in the commitment level? So I can talk about activities. I know FTC it's going to take a good chunk of your time depending on how serious you are. We recommend that you're really serious because this is a great opportunity to learn, through STEM, through marketing, through programming. It involves all these different things and it'll teach you a lot of real life skills. So if you spend a lot of time in it, then it's going to take up a chunk of your time. It is cool to be a part of different activities. I'm part of theater and a few other things outside of FTC. At times they do clash, but as long as it depends on how much you're able to take, and especially it depends on how much your team wants to meet. So whatever they set as their norms, as long as you follow that, you should be fine. And if Trevor or Silence want to add on to that with their experience.
Yeah, so what our FTC team does is to work around other activities, such as band. For me, I'm in marching band in Capel. We set up our meetings on Wednesday, which is the one day out of the weekdays, out of like Monday to Friday, where band students actually have a day off, and that's where I can actually go to meetings. And I would suggest other FEC teams and FRC teams to do the same and to work around other activities.
So, what I'd like to add is, Arsh, plug in your Mac. What other stuff I'd like to add on is that, so basically Wednesdays, what we do is we basically come together, we basically say, hey, what tasks have been completed, what tasks need to be completed, and then we disperse out into individual sections like programming, engineering, marketing, and then we go from there on what tasking to do. But you can't do that only once a week. So basically, from September to probably about November is what we call crunch months. Basically, you have to get your robots finished by like a working model and competition ready by like October or November. So you're gonna have to stay we're attached to the school, so we're a school team, but maybe private teams, you guys have to meet up after school, like maybe 2 or 3 times a week to be able to build the robot. and a drive team, which consists of 3 people. You need to practice driving that robot for the competition. So I'd say it won't be like a once a week or a twice a week thing. The more you, the more you commit to your time in the crunch months, the less time you have to commit during like December, January, February. So basically, the more time you put in the beginning, the less time you have to do a little later. So basically, FTC is completely learner-led, as you can see here. I don't want to jinx it, but no adult has helped us with this, with the outreach stuff we're doing right now. So basically, whenever we want help or something, we just go to our mentors, which we have Mr. Hunter, Miss Hunter, and Mr. Breidenbach. We basically go to them with whatever problems we have or the adult stuff that needs to do like taxes and stuff for FTC or our money problems. We just go to them on whatever we need to figure out. All right, so Trevor, you want to talk about this one?
Yeah, so it's very important for an FTC team to have money because if you have money, you can buy the whatever engineers and programmers need or something. And as a marketer, there's, in my opinion, 2 ways you can do it. That's through fundraising events where you can sell a good or a service to consumers. And for example, what we did is during an event that we call Spring Fling, we sold snow cones and pies that were, I thought they were good, and we raised a fair amount from it. And that went into our bank account, and we were able to spend that for the engineers and programmers. And it's very crucial to have money and to make sure that you have a bumper of around $1,000 to $2,000 to where if you go lower than that, that's kind of a warning of that you need to start fundraising. And another way you can fundraise is through sponsorships. You can reach out to companies locally or not, and you could ask for money for benefits. A lot of companies do it out of the goodness of their heart. Some, and it's a good way. I personally prefer that way. I think it's a more effective way to raise money, but I think it is very, very important to always have money, especially since this year we kind of
Went broke 3 times.
yeah, that's probably the best way to put it.
Yeah.
But that was the first year. We didn't know much and understand much then, and I wasn't a part of the team then either. So,
Yeah. So
well,
basically, we had like 2 grand in our bank account. We're like, oh my God, that's a lot of money. Oh, yes. And then one competition later, because we needed to buy parts for it, like we were very conservative too. Like after the competition fees, after buying some parts that were needed, we went negative $50. So that taught us that we need to fundraise a little more.
All right, and that's the end of this presentation. So